learned from dying. In 2011, I clinically died from heat stroke, and it's been a minute since I've talked about it, so let's get into it. So 2011 was the hottest summer that I can remember. I don't even think we've had a summer come close to how hot it was. It was over 100 degrees every day, super muggy. I was visiting a friend. I was a smoker at the time, big mistake. Went outside to have a cigarette, big mistake. Sat down on the picnic table. As soon as I got up, my head felt like it was shrinking. I was overcome with insane vertigo and nausea. I was so dizzy. So I booked it into my friend's apartment, made it through the patio, made it to the couch, and my sight went. I could still hear. It was very muffled. And as soon as I was overcome with this crazy exhaustion, that was the moment I knew I was dying. And there was no room for fear at this point, because this is the type of exhaustion that you'll likely never experience until you die. And it's so intense, you literally just want to lay down and sleep forever. So you're too tired to even worry about fear. Fear isn't even a thing at this point. And I knew I was going to die. And then, according to my friends, my head slumped down. I started gargling, and then I was just gone. Came to in the hospital a while later. I didn't experience anything. It was just nothing for me. But that isn't because I don't believe, because there's no afterlife. I think my soul just never left my body, because I have a very good relationship with the spirit world. I see spirits. I talk to spirits. I have relationships with spirits. So I know life doesn't end at death. I really think my soul is just hunkering down. But a few hours after I came to, and at this time, I ate like a bird. Well, speaking of birds, I was so ravenously hungry, I felt like I could eat a whole flock of birds. Granted, I ended up just eating a whole bunch of vending machine snacks and whatever the nurse could find to bring me, but it was very out of character for me. The months following my death, I went through something that I like to call death fatigue. I felt really bizarre, out of place, like I didn't belong, and in a way I almost felt like electrical sensations, and I was very, very tired. Snapped out of that after a few months, but I did begin having seizures within weeks of my clinical death. And this went on for a year and a half, and they were frequent and they were scary. And I went to all these doctors, and I was diagnosed with epilepsy and a whole gambit of things. And then one day they just stopped. They just stopped. So I personally believe it has something to do with clinically dying or the heat stroke, one or the other or both. So that was kind of weird, and I may never know. I mean, I probably will never crack that mystery. I kill wristwatches. I have learned that people who have gone through similar experiences to me also kill wristwatches. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. I recently learned this actually, but you slap an old school wristwatch on my wrist, I will kill it in moments. I'm not exactly sure what kind of phenomenon that is or how to explain it, but it is in fact a phenomenon. Welcome to part 2 of fun things I learned from clinically dying. In 2011, I clinically died from heat stroke. If you're interested, head back to my last video to watch part 1. I was trying to answer as many questions as I could in a 3-minute span of time. Speaking of heat stroke, it's really hot and I'm sweaty, but I'm not complaining. So when I say I kill wristwatches, I just mean they stop working like immediately and they never start again. Not modern watches, old school wristwatches. And can you die from heat stroke that quickly? Yes. You can, but there were a couple contributing factors for me. For one, I lived in an old Victorian style home turned apartment in an upper, no AC, tiny windows, so I was exposed to heat for days leading up to this event. Second, I was born with a heart condition called supraventricular tachycardia, or Wolff's-Parkinson's White. I had a surgery that was supposed to correct it in my youth, which is a surgery that is super routine now, but at the time I believe I was the first juvenile in my state to have it done. Unfortunately, my symptoms came back in early adulthood, and it does up my chances of heat stroke and is likely why things went belly up so quickly for me. Of course, I was resuscitated. The friend that I was with was actually in a wheelchair, and she had a lifelong illness. So she had something that was equivalent to a life alert, which I later learned she used for me. I was resuscitated in the ambulance, but it's not like in the movies where you spring to life. I remember nothing of the ambulance ride. My friend did not come along because she was in a wheelchair, and the other person there was her caregiver. So I came to in the hospital super disoriented, couldn't remember the events leading up to anything. It was almost like coming out of anesthesia. In fact, the doctor had to keep coming in to reiterate to me what had happened, at first because I couldn't remember, and then it was because it sounded so nuts that I thought I was dreaming it up. So we had to keep coming in and saying, this is why you're here, this is what happened. Of course, I was hospitalized. They don't let people just walk out the same day when something that traumatic happens. In fact, That became the year of exorbitantly high medical bills and ambulance bills because I was again hospitalized the following winter, which was nearing 2012, because of the seizures, which I touched on in my last video. And that was infuriating. I was there for way too long. I was crawling the walls and I had all these specialists telling me all these different things. My neurologist was saying, oh, you're testing positive for epilepsy. Cardiologist was saying your heart's enlarged. Like, I left way more confused than when I got there with a bunch of medications that turned me into a zombie and didn't work. Went back to the doctor, got new medications, didn't work. In fact, I had a super embarrassing episode at work. This was forever ago. As a second job, I was waiting tables. I was carrying a tray of food and it was the weekend. It was wall-to-wall people. I had a seizure. After the fact, I was so embarrassed. I never wanted to go back, which I did in fact go back. And I should have never been embarrassed. It's silly. I was a rookie to it all. I shouldn't have been embarrassed. So I am starting to run out of time again. So if you have any other questions, let me know. Whether it is my relationship with the spirit world or anything, I'm totally open to answering your questions. Thanks for watching. Ready for a fun, embarrassing story from when I clinically died? Want to answer one question super fast that was asked a ton. Clinical death means that your vital functions stop. So my respiration stopped, my heart stopped. So fun fact about dying, which I've talked about in some of my death explanation videos, is that oftentimes your bowels and your bladder release. Well, I ate like a bird at this point. It was likely well over 24 hours since I'd eaten a thing prior to the incident, which is not healthy. Don't do that, by the way. But so I didn't have any issues in that department. However, my bladder was totally full. Before I get back to that fun little tidbit, I was brought into the hospital via ambulance. I have no recollection of the ambulance ride. I was apparently resuscitated fairly early on in the ambulance ride. By the time I came to, I was already in the hospital sporting one of those beautiful hospital gowns, stickers everywhere. So what they do is they take all of your clothing and your personal effects and they put them in a big bag. And the bag either stays with you in your room unless you're going to be moved elsewhere. Then they take it off for safekeeping and bring it back whenever you are where you're going to be. And I never felt compelled to go through that bag. I asked my nurse at one point to hand me my phone. She grabbed my purse, handed it to me. I pulled out my phone. She put the purse back in the bag. But boy, do I wish I would have gone through that damn bag, because I could have phoned a friend or had a family member run to my place to get me a change of clothing. Because when the day came that I was finally getting sprung and I was super stoked to be getting out of there, they handed me the bag and said, go ahead and change and we'll page for transport, which basically means that they'll call someone to come up with a wheelchair, because no matter how good you're feeling at the time, they won't let you just walk out for liability reasons. So I opened the bag and I remember I was wearing white shorts, but they're no longer white. They're yellow. I mean, the whole back is yellow. Part of the front is yellow. It is obvious that I peed my shorts. So I paged the nurse and I'm like, do you have any shorts or pants I can wear home? And to my relief, she said yes, but she never brought me anything. She must have gotten busy, so I had no choice but to change into my little black tank top and my now yellow shorts and do the roll of shame out of there, which is better than walking out. But if you watch my other videos, you know that all of this transpired on my friend's couch, which was leather. And I never had the guts to ask her if I left behind a puddle of urine or if my shorts just absorbed it all, because I was mortified. I have no shame about it now because I've obviously researched death to death since then. And it's just something that happens and we all pee and whatever. But at the time, I was pretty damn mortified.